Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Brandon, and welcome back to Marotta Media. And so today, I will be discussing another one of my most anticipated films of 2022, Robert Eggers' The Northman. The Northman tells the story of a young boy named Amleth, whose father is murdered by his uncle. So Amleth flees his kingdom and years later returns to take back what is rightfully his. Now, this is the third film from director Robert Eggers, and I am a huge fan of Robert Eggers. His first film, The Witch, is, I think, one of the best horror movies in recent memory. Such incredible acting, set pieces, and just a very disturbing story. His next film, The Lighthouse, is one that I feel very safe calling a masterpiece. It was my favorite movie of 2019, and that was an absolutely stacked year for film. So needless to say, I was very excited for this movie because this man has not made a bad movie yet. And I am very happy to say that he still has not, because The Northman fucking rocks. But The Northman is a little bit different from Eggers' first two films. The Witch and The Lighthouse took their time. They were more slow burn type movies. And The Northman is anything but. This movie has a lot of action, and it's pretty fucking brutal. Even though there is action, there's not a ton of it, but when it is there, it's a marvel to watch. This movie is very bloody and extremely brutal. In fact, I would say if you're squeamish, I wouldn't recommend watching this film, because there is a fair share of pretty disturbing imagery. There are scenes where they murder women and children, there's severed heads and just dismembered body parts. And there's even some scenes where these dismembered body parts are displayed and posed for everyone to see. But like I said, Robert Eggers really puts a lot of work into the set pieces for his films. Now, I don't know about The Witch per se, but I believe that the set pieces in that movie were built from scratch. Because I know for a fact that The Lighthouse was built for the movie specifically. And The Northman does the exact same thing. The entire village that you see at the beginning of the movie and later on in the movie were built by hand for the film. And that's so funny to me. Robert Eggers is like, you know what? I can't find anything that works for me, so let's just build it ourselves. Like, that's an absolute power move. And it further showcases the research that he puts into his movies. Because each of his movies are period pieces, and the people at that time that the movie takes place did not talk how people talk today. The Witch taking place in 1600s New England, The Lighthouse taking place in the late 1800s, and The Northman takes place in the 10th century. So the dialect of all of the people who were alive during these time periods is drastically different. And I know Robert Eggers has studied writings that were written at the time, so he has a good idea of how people spoke. He really goes all out, and I just have to respect that, because you could tell he wants it all to be as authentic as possible. Because I was fascinated by the world that this movie took place in. And that's coming from a person who loves history but never really was all that interested in learning about the Vikings. And this is definitely a world I would never want to live in, because I would probably be dead in about 5 minutes. But another way that The Northman is a little different from Eggers' previous films is that this film is very straightforward. The Witch and The Lighthouse definitely had more aspects that were left up to audience interpretation. And The Northman definitely has moments like that. I mean, it's not all linear, but overall, there's just not a whole lot to interpret here. And depending who you are, that could be a great thing or a horrible thing. But I personally didn't mind it. And I can't believe I've gone this far without mentioning the actors in this film. Alexander Skarsgård and Anya Taylor-Joy definitely steal the show. They rocked it. They fit the characters they play so well, and they have phenomenal chemistry with one another. Nicole Kidman is great, Ethan Hawke is also fantastic, and Willem Dafoe is in this thing too, and he kills it as he always does. Despite the fact that the last three I just mentioned aren't in the movie as long, they do a great job when they actually appear on screen. Even Bjork, the singer, has a small role, and she did a really good job too, and I don't think I've ever seen her act in anything. However, unlike its predecessor, The Lighthouse, The Northman is not perfect. There were a few things that didn't quite sit that well with me. One of them being the pacing in the first act. I thought it was very quick. The main conflict happens within the first 10 minutes, and it's not a spoiler because it happens in the trailer. But Amleth's father, played by Ethan Hawke, returns to their kingdom, and then he tells him, "This will be your kingdom one day." He goes through this weird initiation, and then he's dead. And that happens within probably the first 10 minutes. And I was like, oh, okay, I feel we probably could have taken a little more time to set up the relationship between the father and the son, but they chose not to go that way, and I mean, it's not the end of the world because I really enjoyed the movie. The next thing being that this movie's plot is not very original. I mean, you put the pieces together. Heir to a throne, father killed by uncle, runs away, returns to take back his kingdom. It's Hamlet. And even if you aren't familiar with Hamlet or Shakespeare, that is also literally the plot of The Lion King, which Hamlet inspired. So in a way, The Northman is also The Lion King. Not that that's a bad thing, because The Lion King is fantastic. The animated version anyway, the 2019 photorealistic Lion King was hot garbage. And even though the plot is not the most original, Eggers puts enough of his own style and substance into the film to make it feel different. Now, even though I loved this movie, I think that this is Eggers' weakest film thus far. And that's not because it's bad, it's just because his first two were so good that this one just so happens to unfortunately fall into the third spot. But still, this movie was fantastic. It met my expectations, and overall, I would give The Northman a 9 out of 10. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching my review of The Northman. If you guys saw this movie, let me know what you thought about it. Did you love it, or did you think it was Eggers' worst film or his best film? If you guys like this review, then be sure to hit that thumbs up, and do not forget to subscribe. If you want to see my previous reviews, then I'll link those right over here. Other than that, I hope you all have a tremendous rest of your day. I will see you all next time.